Well, sadly, this is not the first time that tragedy of this magnitude has hit sport and football in particular. And while history does tell us it has been possible for the clubs to survive and even recover, there's no doubting the road is a long and painful one. Back in 1949, a plane carrying the entire Torino football team crashed into a wall, killing players, club officials, journalists and crew. The crash claiming 31 victims. 18 were players. The club was coming off the back of a fifth straight Serie A title, having solidified them as the best Italian team of their era. Now, following the disaster, the club spent most of the next decade towards the bottom of Serie A before eventually being relegated to the second tier of Italian football in 1959. It took 27 years for the club to win another top-flight title. In 1958, tragedy striking Manchester United when the team plane crashed on its third attempt to take off from a slush-covered runway in the German city of Munich. United, known at the time as the Busby Babes, lost 8 players. Just like Torino, Man United were one of England's best teams, having won the domestic league the 2 previous seasons. Remarkably, they were able to recover to win the league again just 8 years later, and even more incredibly, 2 years after that, they became the first English club to win the European Cup. United went on to become one of the world's largest clubs in any sport. In 1987, a plane carrying the Peruvian football club Alianza Lima plunged into the Pacific Ocean, claiming the lives of 44 players, managers, staff, cheerleaders and crew members. Only the pilot would survive that accident. At the time, the club had won 17 Peruvian Primera titles, a national record, and were top of the league with just a few games remaining in that season. The club finishing the championship playing with members of its youth team and a few players on loan, but were unable to maintain their lead. 10 years after the disaster, Alianza claiming an 18th division crown. And in 1993, the Zambian national team suffering the same fate when their aircraft crashed into the Sea of Gabon, killing everyone aboard. The squad was extremely talented and were hoping to qualify for the '94 World Cup, which would have been their first. 19 years after the horrific accident, they did manage to win their first and to date only Africa Cup of Nations title. Incredibly, the location of the 2012 final was only a few hundred meters inland from the crash site, the victory dedicated to those who lost their lives in the tragedy.